What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another video. And today I have my 3 Crimson King structure deck profile. I am way beyond late on this, and I am very sorry. Being sick kind of took a lot of energy out of me, and then when I recovered, my main focus was like getting revenue back. So I kind of kept forgetting to upload, and I meant to upload the second part of that tin opening before a month had passed, but I didn't. And I am very sorry for that. But I'm gonna try and turbo out some bangers for y'all. I'm planning on picking up the rarity collection that just dropped because that set looks hype. And without further ado, let's jump straight into this deck profile. Um, I'm not the best with this deck, but I also haven't been practicing it a whole lot. So starting us off, we have 3 copies of Soul Resonator. Soul Resonator on summon grabs you a level 4 Fiend from your deck to your hand. And then if your stuff would be destroyed, it's basically Return of the Dragon Lords. So, protect yourself from your RDA blowing up your entire board. Then we have 3 copies of Vision Resonator. Vision Resonator can summon itself if you control a level 5 or higher dark monster on your side of the field. And then whenever it's sent to the graveyard, you can add a spell or trap that specifically mentions RDA from your deck to your hand. Both of these cards are really good support cards, especially because these spells and traps that we got are super powerful for this deck. Next up, we're on 3 copies of Crimson Resonator. Crimson Resonator is part of the strongest 2-card combo this deck has with just the 3 structure decks. And what it does is it's an activated effect in the hand to special summon it if you have no monsters. And then if you control a Dark Synchro monster and it itself, you can special summon 2 Resonator monsters from your hand or deck, except another copy of itself. Next, I'm on 2 copies of Red Resonator as a normal summon that's also a little bit of it's like our normal summon that also is a starter. It's not like amazing, but if you open Red Resonator plus a card we'll talk about a little bit later named Bone Archfiend, normal summoning Resonator and summoning Bone Archfiend lets you still go into your Red Rising Dragon, but unfortunately not the most optimal in a way. And then we're also on the one of Synchron Resonator. Synchron Resonator, here, let me move these over here. Synchron Resonator is just a one of because you're mainly summoning it off of Crimson during your combo. There we go. Now we're set. Kind of. Sorry. Again, I haven't recorded since those 2 parts to the to the 10 opening. Synchron Resonator, you're really only using it to summon off of Crimson, and whenever it goes to the graveyard, you grab any Fiend with 1500 or less attack. Oh no, it's a Resonator monster. Okay. Some of them specify Fiends with 1500 or less, and then and then some of them specify Resonators. Synchron Resonator grabs another Resonator other than itself from the graveyard. It can also summon itself if you have a Synchro monster on the board. So, there we go. And that is it for the Resonator lineup that I am running. And now we're going to move on to our 3 copies of Bone Archfiend, probably the other half of the 2-card combo. If you open this plus Crimson Resonator, you have the most resilient 2-card combo in the deck. And if you guys want a proper guide to that combo, I highly recommend watching Rev's Playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Properly series, if you guys have not been watching that. Rev's Cards, Playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Properly Season 2. I've been enjoying it a lot, and I really like his channel a lot. So, there we go. Next, I am also on 3 copies of Wandering King Wildwind. He's mainly an extender, but he's also, in my mind, just another. He's like 3 worse copies of Bone Archfiend because he can special summon himself if you have a Fiend with 1500 or less on your board. So he combos well with the Resonators, but not as good as Bone Archfiend. And then for our normal summon, one of our not one of our better normal summons, one of our many normal summons within the deck, we have 3 copies of Witch of the Black Forest, just because the structure deck doesn't really give you a whole lot to work with, because a lot of it is RDA support. And that is going to be it for the monsters. That is all of the monsters. No hand traps in the structure deck, which is kind of weird because they've been on a really good streak of giving like at least Ash Blossom in structure decks. So yeah. Next, we have 3 copies of Crimson Gaia. Whenever it's activated, you can add a card that has Red Dragon Archfiend in its text from your deck to your hand. That means monster, spell, or trap. Or no. Yeah. You can either add RDA from hand or graveyard, or from deck to hand, or something like that. Or you can add a card that specifically mentions it. So you can... I don't know. It's weird that it says you can add a Red Dragon Archfiend from your deck to your hand, unless it also says graveyard. Oh yeah, deck or graveyard to your hand. My bad, my bad. And then if a card was destroyed by card effect, you can special summon an RDA from your graveyard. But that's not important because this card's not staying on the field long enough for that. You're mainly sending this off with Bone Archfiend to summon Bone Archfiend back. Again, I know a little bit of the combo, I just don't know the full combo through and through on how to end on the proper board. So next we're going to get into our 3 copies of Resonator Call, just extra consistency. It's 3 extra copies of any Resonator in the deck. And if RDA ever like takes off as more than a like tier 1.5, tier 2 kind of deck, I feel like Resonator Call would be a good hit within the deck. Same thing with Red Rising Dragon. Not once per turn. They're really good hand trap bait. Crimson Gaia is really good. But again, I feel like as long as RDA is just kind of this like... It's slightly better than Dragon Link, but that's because Dragon Link is in a spot without Striker Drag, or with like 1 Striker Dragon, 1 of the baby Chaos Dragons, and then 1 Magnuma and 1 Chaos Base. They have a lot of cards at 1 right now. So Dragon Link's in a weird spot, but RDA kind of gives... RDA Dragon Link is just the superior build. And then we're on 3 copies of Resonator Command. Resonator Command, quick play spell, so you can activate this in the standby phase to dodge Droll. Completely whiffed over that when I was putting this together, and then I watched Revs' video, and he brought up, oh, it's a quick play spell, so it gets around Draw because you can activate it in your draw or standby phase, whichever one you prefer, and, you know... gives you an extra little search before you get drolled. So that's a very fun thing. So that is going to be it for our spell cards. Now we're going to move into the trap cards, starting us off with a 1 of rather than a 3 of. But this one's the most important trap card here, Red Zone. This gives you a pop on your opponent's turn, and it lets you summon back a banished Synchro monster. So there's a monster in the extra deck that banishes itself to basically get rid of everything your opponent controls for a turn. And you can just summon this back, and that effect isn't once per turn, or the monster's effect isn't once per turn. This thing's effect is a hard once. But the actual monster's effect is not. So you, the board is like that plus Hybrid Dragon Archfiend Abyss, this, and, so you get 2 field banishes, a Omni Negate, and you get a way to play around Dark Ruler, because if you wait till your opponent tries to flip or activate Dark Ruler on you, you can flip this in response, and then Hybrid Dragon Archfiend Abyss negate the Dark Ruler because you're not activating the monster effect in response to Ruler, you're activating it in response to the red zone. So, there you go. Next, we're on 3 copies of Fiendish Golem. Fiendish Golem banishes a monster with 2,000 or more attack that was special summoned until the next end phase. And then if you had Red Dragon Archfiend on the board when you activated it, you get to set 1 copy of Fiendish Chain, either from your deck or your graveyard, to your side of the field, which we are on 3 Fiendish Chain because extra interaction is never bad. It's like, why run 2 Fogblade when 3 is just better? You know? Even though Fiendish Chain is nowhere near the level of Fogblade good, in my mind. And then to round out the deck, I have 3 copies of Terrors of the Underroot. Helps play around Unchained a little bit. And yeah, that is it for the main deck. So, let's get into the extra deck. And I have a full side deck put together, but it is a really, really bad side deck. So, keep that in mind. Starting us off, we have 3 copies of Red Rising Dragon. This card is really powerful, really strong, but it's really fun to play around with. Not once per turn. You can special summon a monster from your, or you can special summon a Resonator from your graveyard to your side of the field. So most of the time you're summoning Crimson Resonator from your graveyard to your side of the field, and then using Crimson to grab 2 other tuners from the deck. And that's really the extent of what this card is. It's just a free way to make level 8s or level 12s, which we'll get into. Next, we're on 2 copies of RDA. And then 2 copies of Scar Red. Scar Red is just not really a retrain. Scar Red is their way of giving RDA support to help you extend your plays into big bad synchros, and they did a damn good job at it. Scar Red, if it's sent to the graveyard by any means, does not matter how it's sent to the graveyard, you special summon RDA and it's treated as a synchro monster, and then if it was sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you can destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls. Scar Red is amazing. And then so is this next card we're going to talk about is 2 copies of Red Supernova Dragon. This is the board wipe in the extra deck. It is the when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can, as a quick effect, banish it to banish all cards your opponent controls. And then, it gains 500 attack for every tuner in the graveyard. And it comes out at base 4,000. So this thing gets huge. This thing is humongous. Then we're on 2 copies of Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend because it's better than any of our other options. 2 Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. And 2 copies of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane. Just because Abyss is an Omni-Negate, Scarlet is good for time, and then Bane is good for punching through going for game in OTK. So that is it for the extra deck. We're going to set that off over there. Now we're getting into the side deck. There's a few cards in here that is like, you can do this if you want, or if you just want to leave the side deck completely empty with 3 structure decks, I would not blame you because this side deck is scuffed. Because starting us off in the side deck, we have 3 copies of Red Warg. This card can kind of come up as a level 6 extender because it can summon itself if you control a Resonator monster. And it just halves its attack, and that's it. So it's just a free level 6 to put on the board just for having a Resonator, which is really, really nice to have because it's just a free Scar Red right then and there. But I didn't want to make room for it in the main deck and would rather have played it in the side. Then I'm on 3 copies of Chupacabra and 1 copy of Nessie as ways to make, Nessie's in here as a way to find the Chupacabras, and Chupacabra's in here as a way to make, Red Rising. Then we're on 3 Absolute Power Force because, like I said, you're stripped for options in the structure deck. So this card, like I said, if you don't want to play this card, I don't blame you. It has a few effects on there. I'm not really going to cover it because I don't think the side deck is too important to cover in full detail. Red Warg I went over to kind of explain it. Absolute Power Force. From here, it's basically like, 2 Pot of Extravagance. I don't like Extrav in this deck at all because of the RNG that you could banish all 3 copies of Red Rising, and Red Rising is important. So yeah, Pot of Extrav is not that great. And then Red Rain, I actually really like. It's a little too cute though. Red Rain, I think it's just like a Featherstorm. Oh no, if you control level 8 or higher, Synchro, banish all monsters on the field except the monster with the highest level. And um, also, remaining face up monsters on the field are unaffected by other effects except their own. Till the end of the turn, if a Dark Dragon Synchro monster is Synchro summoned while it's in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand. Okay, so it's a blanket, or it's just a board wipe by having a level 8 or higher Dragon Synchro, and it makes all the rest of your stuff unaffected. Nice. And then on top of that, if you summon a Dark Dragon Synchro, you can just grab it back from your graveyard. So you don't need to play 3. But like I said, the structure deck is really stripped on resources. So with this being said, I'm just going to let y'all see what I'm doing because I'm ending the video here. Last thing I want to say is, again, I'm very sorry about the lack thereof of videos recently. Like I said, being sick kind of took a lot out of me, and I just haven't had the time to bounce back into creating videos. So hopefully from here on, I can start getting back into it. And with that being said, I appreciate y'all, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace. Come on, phone.